Good day to everyone tuning in. 520 days. That's how long Arman Tsarukyan has been sitting on the sidelines. No fights, no cage time, just watching his golden years slowly fade away. Think about it for a second. When Arman last stepped into the Octagon, Merab Dvalishvili wasn't even a champion yet. Bilal Muhammad didn't have his belt either. Ilia Topuria had just claimed his own title. The sport has completely changed around him, but Tsarukyan has remained stuck in neutral. After the fallout from his canceled bout against Islam Makhachev, Arman's career momentum froze. The UFC matchmakers seemed to lose interest in pushing him forward, and now he's been left searching for a meaningful fight like a lone wolf surrounded by sharks. Twice, the organization offered him a rematch with Mateusz Gamrot, the Polish powerhouse who edged him out in a controversial decision 3 years ago. But Arman refused both times, not because of fear, but because, as he said himself, the opponent doesn't match my level or my goals. Now, though, it looks like a breakthrough is finally coming. On the horizon stands Dan Hooker, a dangerous yet stylistically favorable striker, the kind of matchup Arman has been waiting for. Everything seems perfect at first glance, but then you remember, this same favorable striker recently dismantled Mateusz Gamrot, proving once again that MMA never follows a predictable script. So today, we'll dive deep into what kind of Tsarukyan we're about to see after such a long layoff. We'll analyze how sharp Hooker still is, what hidden weapons he brings into the cage, and whether Arman can earn himself a long-awaited title eliminator against Topuria after this fight. You're watching MMA Review. Please hit that like button, support the channel, and let's get into it. But that's not all. Right after this showdown, there's another massive fight, Dominic Reyes versus Carlos Ulberg, a battle that could determine who earns a title shot against either Magomed Ankalaev or Alex Pereira. And 1 week later, Pereira himself returns to the cage in Dubai to face Ankalaev directly. Pereira has already promised to knock Magomed out cold and end any talk of a trilogy between them once and for all. Now, let's get back to Dan Hooker, a man who has practically lived his entire adult life inside the Octagon. He joined the UFC over 11 years ago. Just think about that. More than a decade trading blows with killers like Jim Miller, Dustin Poirier, and Michael Chandler. Hooker has seen it all: blood, knockouts, brutal submissions, and moments where careers are made or destroyed. His record has plenty of losses, sure, but every one of them is a battle scar, a lesson learned. He knows what it means to stand in the fire for 5 rounds, when your lungs are empty and your legs barely hold you up. Hooker's career is full of wars, fights where survival meant more than points on the judges' cards. And that's what makes him so dangerous. He's seen the worst the sport can offer, and he's still here, standing tall. Arman, meanwhile, took a different route. He didn't have as many fights with top-tier names, but every step he took was part of a calculated evolution. He debuted in the UFC on short notice against none other than Islam Makhachev, who would later become the lightweight champion. Arman lost that debut, but it was a baptism by fire. Instead of fading away, he used it as a foundation. He climbed the ranks step by step, top 15, top 10, then top 5, turning every win into a building block for his legacy. After Makhachev, his only other loss came against Mateusz Gamrot, and even that one was razor close, a 5-round war where many believed the decision could have easily gone to Tsarukyan. But instead of complaining, he kept moving forward. 4 wins in a row followed, including a statement knockout over Beneil Dariush in just 1 minute and a hard-fought victory over former champion Charles Oliveira. Those wins earned him his rightful shot at the elite, the kind of high-stakes matchup fans crave. And that's where we are now, a long-awaited, tension-filled return of Arman Tsarukyan, the relentless machine ready to reclaim his path to the top.
The beauty of matchups like this, Tsarukyan versus Hooker, is that they feel authentic. They're not some forced title fights where you already know who's walking away with the belt. This isn't one of those manufactured bouts like we've seen lately, where contenders seem hand-picked and the suspense feels artificial. Nah, this one's different. This is that classic style versus style, heart versus heart kind of fight. The kind that reminds you why you fell in love with MMA in the first place. You look at the current landscape of UFC, and you see title fights popping up like clockwork. Yuji Prochaska, Alex Pereira, Cyril Gane, Justin Gaethje, even Colby Covington. They all had their shots, sometimes more than once, and half the time you already knew who would win before the fight even began. But Tsarukyan versus Hooker? That's a different story. Both fighters are in their physical prime, both hungry, both desperate to climb higher. And that's what makes this so damn intriguing. When it comes to cardio and pace, the contrast couldn't be more striking. Dan Hooker is a rhythm fighter. He likes working in bursts, landing smart combinations, then taking short pauses before resetting. He's not a marathon man like Merab Dvalishvili. He's more like a sniper who chooses his moments carefully. In 5-round wars, Hooker's stamina has faded before, but he's never quit. He just slows down, gets hit more, but keeps pushing. Arman Tsarukyan, on the other hand, is built differently. The man is a pressure engine. His style isn't about moments, it's about minutes. He doesn't wait. He forces you to fight at his pace until you can't breathe. Wrestling, striking, clinch, control, rinse, and repeat. His gas tank is one of the best in the division. When the fight hits the championship rounds, Tsarukyan doesn't slow down, he actually gets stronger while his opponents start drowning. True, that didn't quite happen against Mateusz Gamrot. That was the one time Arman's relentless pace backfired. He pushed too hard, too early, and ended up spending too much energy trying to dominate an equally athletic and tactical opponent. But that was a unique case, and it taught him a valuable lesson about managing intensity. Now, let's talk physical attributes. The Anthropometrics, as analysts like to say. Hooker stands taller by about 13 centimeters, with an 8-centimeter reach advantage. That's significant. It means he'll have more room to play his striking game, especially that long, sharp jab of his. For Arman, who's shorter and stockier, this means a different approach, lowering his center of gravity, closing distance fast, and using his frame to secure takedowns. His build is perfect for that grinding, pressure-heavy style. Strong hips, quick level changes, explosive core strength. So, yes, this fight isn't just striker versus grappler. It's a collision of body types and tactical philosophies, length versus density, precision versus persistence, leverage versus explosion. In striking, they represent two opposite schools. Hooker is the archetype of a tall, technical striker, a long man who thrives at mid to long range, keeping opponents at the end of his punches and kicks. His signature tools? That clean 1-2 combination, jab, cross, low kick. And that low kick, by the way, is vicious. It slices into the opponent's lead leg like a blade, slowing down their movement and setting up counters. Then there's his front kick, that nasty teep to the body that shuts down aggression. It's like pressing the pause button on your opponent's offense. And when someone rushes in, Hooker has some of the best intercepting knees in the division. Fighters like Gilbert Burns and Jim Miller learned that the hard way. But Tsarukyan brings a totally different rhythm. He's not looking for a long-range kickboxing match. His ideal distance is half a step away from a takedown. That mid-range pocket where he can fake a strike, level change, and shoot instantly. Recently, he's been sharpening his boxing, using double jabs, masking his entries, throwing overhands after fakes, and using a clean left hook to punish opponents who expect a takedown. He doesn't claim the center of the cage by volume, he does it by angles. He cuts off movement, forces opponents towards the fence, and traps them where he can explode into wrestling exchanges. If we break down Hooker's jab, it's sharp like a needle. He throws it in series, often combining 1-2 or 2-3 patterns, and sometimes doubling the jab before ending with a chopping low kick. His uppercut, though, is the real danger. When opponents duck under his punches, that uppercut comes flying and connects with nasty precision. Tsarukyan's jab, by contrast, is more of a disguise. He doesn't throw it for damage, but to create distraction, to mask his level change or entry. He'll flick it, then drop for a double leg or shoot straight into the body. And when it comes to kicks, again, total contrast. Hooker's kicking game is systematic. He batters that outer leg from range, breaking opponents down piece by piece. His front kick to the solar plexus isn't just painful, it's demoralizing. Tsarukyan, meanwhile, uses kicks functionally to set up his wrestling. A low kick to shift balance, a mid kick to draw guard high, and then boom, a takedown attempt. But don't think he can't kick for power. His high kicks are fast, precise, and whip-like. The flexibility this man has is freakish. In the clinch, again, two worlds apart. Hooker's clinch is a place of elbows and knees. He uses his long limbs to punish anyone who gets too close. Tsarukyan's clinch is a doorway to grappling. If he grabs you, expect to be on the ground within seconds. He shifts angles, repositions grips, and chains his takedowns together like a machine. That's where the real chess match begins. Hooker trying to keep space, Tsarukyan trying to close it. The one who dictates where the fight happens will likely walk out the winner.
Now let's move into the deeper layers of this matchup, where Tsarukyan truly breathes like a shark in the water, the grappling. When the fight hits the mat, everything changes. Arman's wrestling is nothing short of elite. His transitions are fluid, his timing is laser sharp, and his chain wrestling is relentless. If the first takedown attempt doesn't work, he doesn't reset or back away. He simply switches direction, changes grips, and attacks again. You can literally see the calculation in his eyes as he transitions from a single leg to a body lock, to a trip, to a mat return. It's all one seamless motion. He builds pressure like a wave. You might defend the first crash, maybe even the second, but by the third, it's dragging you under. What makes Tsarukyan terrifying isn't just his technique, it's the persistence behind it. He'll keep grinding until your muscles burn and your lungs collapse. Against the cage, he's a nightmare, folding his opponent's hips, locking his hands under the butt, pressing the head into the ribs, and driving until you crumble. Dan Hooker, on the other hand, relies more on his long frame and instincts for defense. He's got solid sprawl mechanics, spreading his base wide, framing with his forearms, and using his torso to push opponents away. Sometimes he'll try to wrap the head into a front headlock or even threaten with the guillotine choke if his opponent dives in carelessly. And make no mistake, his guillotine is no joke. If you leave your neck hanging, he'll clamp down in a flash. But here's the problem. Against a grinder like Tsarukyan, that type of defense can only buy you time. You might survive the first minute, but you'll be paying for it later. All that pushing, framing, and squeezing eats away at your oxygen reserves. After 3 or 4 scrambles, even someone as durable as Hooker will start to feel the acid in his legs, the weight in his arms. Once the fight hits the canvas, the gap between them becomes even clearer. Arman's cop control is suffocating. He's not wild or frantic, it's organized chaos. He'll pin the half guard, isolate a wrist with what grapplers call the Dagestani handcuff, and then start delivering precise, rhythmic ground and pound. It's not random violence, it's methodical destruction. 3 or 4 clean shots, then a small positional adjustment, then more punishment. Submissions aren't his primary weapon, but they're always lurking. If his opponent gives up an arm or turns the wrong way, Tsarukyan can transition to an armbar or triangle choke instantly. That constant threat forces opponents to stay defensive, and when you're defending, you're not escaping. Hooker's ground game, by contrast, is built for survival. He'll shrimp, create space, and try to wall walk up the fence. He throws elbows from the bottom, sometimes sharp enough to cut, but they rarely change the position. Against Arman's smothering pressure, those elbows are more of an annoyance than an actual deterrent. Near the cage, Tsarukyan's control game becomes a masterclass. He folds the body, clamps the thigh, and neutralizes knees before they can even lift. Hooker might try to frame and sneak in an elbow or knee on the break, but if Arman connects his hands under the hips, it's over. You're going for a ride. Now let's talk about Hooker's hidden traps, the things that make him so dangerous even against elite wrestlers. The first one is, of course, that flying knee. He times it perfectly when opponents shoot straight down the middle. We've seen him land it multiple times, and if Tsarukyan gets lazy with his entries, that knee could end his night. The second trap is the guillotine or darce choke. If Arman shoots without properly clearing his head position, Hooker's long arms can snake around the neck and lock it tight. The third weapon is the low kick.
Hooker is a master of chopping the opponent's lead leg before they commit to a takedown. If he can damage Arman's front leg early, it'll make those level changes slower and easier to read. And the fourth danger, perhaps the most subtle one, is ego. If Tsarukyan gets overconfident and decides to trade too long in the pocket, Hooker's counters could make him pay. But if Arman sticks to his bread and butter, wrestling, pressure, and control, the advantage is clear. His transitions are faster, his scrambles tighter, his top game heavier. Hooker's only real chance lies in catching him with something explosive, a knee, a choke, or a perfectly timed punch. Over the long haul, the grind favors Arman every single time. And remember, his last training camp was entirely built around preparing for Islam Makhachev, the best wrestler in the division. Even though that fight never materialized, the camp itself sharpened his grappling game tremendously. Since then, even during his long break from official fights, Arman hasn't gone dormant. No injuries, no distractions. He's been actively competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments every couple of months, staying sharp and beating high-level grapplers. That's the kind of focus and consistency that keeps a fighter dangerous even after 520 days of inactivity. He's not just coming back, he's returning sharper, hungrier, and with more technical precision than ever before. So when you look at the ground aspect of this fight, the picture is clear. Arman is the hunter, Hooker is the survivor. If Arman drags him into deep waters, Dan will be forced to play defense for as long as he can breathe. But you can only hold your breath for so long.
Now let's step into the psychological side, the part of the fight that you can't measure with stats or takedown percentages. This is where experience, hunger, and mindset collide. Arman Tsarukyan has always carried himself with the quiet intensity of a man who knows he's destined for greatness. He doesn't bark, he doesn't trash talk, but the way he fights says everything you need to know. You can see it in his eyes before the cage door shuts, that razor focus, that sense that nothing else exists in the world except the man standing across from him. Every movement, every feint, every step, it's all intentional. He's 27 now, just entering the peak of his physical prime. But what really stands out isn't just youth, it's composure. Most fighters at his age still fight emotionally. They try to prove something with every exchange. Arman fights like a veteran. He's cold, deliberate, and unshakable. Even when the crowd roars or the fight turns chaotic, his expression doesn't change. That stoic demeanor is a weapon in itself. Dan Hooker, meanwhile, is on the other side of that arc. He's been through wars with Poirier, Felder, Chandler, and many others. He's tasted victory and swallowed pain. And those kinds of experiences do two things to a fighter. They either break you or they forge you into something unkillable. In Hooker's case, it's a bit of both. He's been cracked, dropped, bloodied, but he keeps standing. He keeps walking forward. That's what makes him so dangerous. You can hurt him, but you can't make him quit. But that indestructible image also hides a truth. Damage accumulates. No matter how tough your chin is, no matter how big your heart, the body remembers every war. Every punch, every knee, every takedown adds a layer of fatigue that never fully leaves. Fighters don't just age by years, they age by battles. And Hooker has been through more than most. This is what makes this matchup fascinating. Tsarukyan brings the storm, young, fresh, disciplined. Hooker brings the heart, seasoned, gritty, unbreakable. It's the collision of youth and endurance, of structure and chaos. Let's also not ignore the mental warfare of long layoffs. 520 days out of official competition can either make you rusty or make you hungry. For Arman, it's clearly the latter. The fire is still there, burning hotter than before. He's been visualizing this comeback, sharpening every weakness, expanding every strength. This isn't a man returning just to compete. He's returning to conquer. Hooker, on the other hand, has been active, fighting through pain, through broken bones, through injuries most fighters would sit out for. His training sessions often look like war camps, bloody, rugged, unforgiving. That's part of what makes him loved by fans.
but it also takes its toll. And there's another psychological layer here, the division itself. The lightweight division is a shark tank. Every fighter in the top 10 is a killer, and both these men know that one misstep can cost them years of progress. For Tsarukyan, this fight is the gatekeeper test. Beat Hooker and you earn your shot at the top 5 again. For Hooker, this is about survival, about showing the world that he's not just a gatekeeper, that he's still dangerous, still relevant, still capable of breaking the dreams of the next generation. That's why this fight carries a certain tension, an emotional weight that goes beyond rankings. For Arman, it's about destiny. For Hooker, it's about legacy. You can see it in the way they train. Arman's camps are built around precision, countless rounds of technical sparring, positional drills, and high-level grappling battles. Every session is calculated. Hooker's camps are more chaotic, less controlled, more raw. He thrives on pressure, on discomfort. He wants to feel that pain, to simulate the storm before he steps into it. It's almost ritualistic. If you put their mindsets side by side, it's like comparing a sniper to a street fighter. Tsarukyan lines up the shot, breathes, and pulls the trigger when the moment is perfect. Hooker, on the other hand, walks into the brawl with a grin, ready to take one just to give one back twice as hard. But that's exactly why Arman's style could frustrate him. Hooker feeds off exchanges. He needs that chaos to come alive. If Arman doesn't give it to him, if he keeps the pace controlled and the positions dominant, Hooker might find himself trapped in silence, unable to create his kind of fight. And for a man like him, that silence can be suffocating. This fight will test everything: endurance, patience, ego, and discipline. And more than anything, it will test who breaks first. Tsarukyan's key will be emotional control. If he stays patient, mixes his entries, and doesn't chase the finish too early, he'll systematically dismantle Hooker. But if he starts swinging wild, if he lets the moment get to his head, Hooker's experience could flip the script in a second. Hooker's key will be chaos. He needs to make Tsarukyan uncomfortable, draw him into exchanges, frustrate him with volume, and attack with unexpected shots when the younger man starts to relax. He needs to remind Tsarukyan that this is a fight, not a chess match. And that's why this matchup is pure theater. It's not just technique, it's identity versus identity. Who you are when the cage door shuts.
When the cage door closes and the lights drop over the octagon, all the predictions and breakdowns fade away. What's left are instincts, preparation, and the raw will to win. You can feel it, the hum in the arena, the energy between two men who know they're about to push each other past the limit. For Arman Tsarukyan, that moment is sacred. He always walks in calm, his face unreadable, like a man who's already seen the fight 100 times in his mind. Every movement, every angle, every breath has been rehearsed in silence. There's no fear, just execution. And that's what separates the greats from the good. The first round will likely set the tone. Expect Arman to test Hooker's reactions early. Feints, quick level changes, maybe a fast double leg attempt just to see how Hooker sprawls. He'll read him like a book. If Hooker tries to establish his jab and inside leg kicks, Tsarukyan will use those as entry points. The rhythm will be crucial. Arman's goal is to break Hooker's comfort zone, to make him hesitate before throwing that right hand or that knee. And if he succeeds, the momentum becomes his. Once he gets inside, the cage becomes his world. That's where he thrives. Chest to chest, shoulder pressure digging into the jaw, head pressed into the ribs, and control that feels like drowning. Every second there drains Hooker's energy. Every escape attempt becomes slower than the last. In those moments, when sweat and blood mix and your lungs are begging for air, fighters reveal who they really are. Hooker has proven time and again that he's built from something primal. He refuses to fold. Even when he's exhausted, he fights back with spite. He'll throw those sneaky elbows in the clinch.
push Arman's head down and try to create chaos. But Tsarukyan has learned to thrive in chaos too. He's evolved from being a talented prospect into a strategic predator. His striking defense has improved dramatically, his entries are tighter, and his ability to maintain control without wasting energy is exceptional. He no longer chases takedowns recklessly, he creates them. You can almost imagine the rhythm of the fight. Hooker starts with volume, throwing combinations and trying to establish range. Arman stays patient, absorbs the reads, and begins timing him. By the middle of round 2, the fight shifts. The cage control belongs to Tsarukyan. He starts chaining his takedowns, forcing Hooker to defend relentlessly. And while Hooker's heart refuses to give up, physics starts to betray him. Fatigue sets in, the timing slows, the reactions dull. That's when Arman strikes hardest. He doesn't need to chase a finish, it comes naturally from the accumulation of pressure. Whether it's ground and pound, a slick transition to the back, or a flurry on the feet after Hooker tries to stand, Tsarukyan's power will start to show. There's also the question of durability. Hooker's chin has been tested more than almost anyone's in the division, but every test leaves a mark. You can't fight wars forever without the armor cracking. If Arman lands clean, especially those short hooks and elbows inside the pocket, it could be enough to finally break the unbreakable. Still, you can never count Hooker out. He's the kind of fighter who can be bloodied, limping, and one shot away from defeat, and then land a perfectly timed knee that changes everything. That unpredictability is his superpower. Even when he's cornered, he's dangerous. If this fight goes the full distance, expect Arman to dominate positionally. Heavy control, top pressure, and maybe even some ground strikes that force the referee to watch closely. But if Hooker turns it into a brawl, if he forces wild exchanges and drags Arman into deep waters, that's where his experience could make the difference. The outcome ultimately depends on who imposes their world first. If it's a clean, structured fight, Arman walks away with a statement win, perhaps even a late stoppage in the third round. But if it turns into a dogfight, if he forces wild exchanges and drags Arman into deep waters, that's where his experience could make the difference. The outcome ultimately depends on who imposes their world first. If it's a clean, structured fight, Arman walks away with a statement win, perhaps even a late stoppage in the third round. But if it turns into a dogfight, if he forces wild exchanges and drags Arman into deep waters, that's where his experience could make the difference. The larger story isn't just about one night, it's about what comes after. For Tsarukyan, a win here puts him right back into the mix with the elite. Names like Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, and even a rematch with Islam Makhachev start to make sense. For Hooker, this could be his last stand among the top, the fight that defines whether he's still part of the contender circle or becomes the test for others climbing the ladder. There's poetry in that. One fighter rising toward his prime, another standing tall against the pull of time. Both driven by something deeper than fame, the need to prove that they still belong in the fire. When the final horn sounds, no matter who's standing taller, both will have left a piece of themselves in that cage. Because fights like these aren't just contests, they are transformations. You don't come out the same person you were when you walked in. And that's the beauty of it. Two warriors from opposite ends of the journey meeting at the crossroads, testing each other's soul. When the smoke clears, don't be surprised if Arman Tsarukyan raises his hand, not because Hooker wasn't good enough, but because Arman's time has come. He's too sharp, too disciplined, too complete now. The fire that burned quietly for 520 days is finally unleashed. But one thing's for sure, whether it lasts one round or all three, this fight will remind the world why we love this sport. Because it's not just about who hits harder or wrestles better. It's about who refuses to break when everything falls apart. And in that space, that raw, brutal truth of combat, legends are born.